We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. By the time you hear this on the podcast, it will be Wednesday, but I'm recording this on Substack, on a live Substack. And it's been a little bit before since I've been back to Substack doing it live, and I missed it. I enjoy talking to all the folks out here. We're very fortunate to have a lot of people participating. And as I've told you before, that's absolutely crucial that you join in, ask questions, make comments. That makes this more interesting and more informative as opposed to me just standing up here and talking for an hour. We want you to participate as much as you want to participate. I'll remind you, this will be recorded and will be the podcast for tomorrow, the Rational Boomer podcast. So if you can't hear the whole live or want to hear the whole live, you can hear it on the podcast sometime after midnight tonight. And I also want to tell folks out there on Substack, I have a running rule with the Rational Boomer podcast. They're not always live. Sometimes we do a Zoom conversation type thing. And people always ask me, who can be guests on the show? Well, anybody who listens to the show can be a guest on the show. You don't have to be a professional at this or anything. And if you listen to the show, all these people came to the show that way. This isn't what they did for a living or anything, but they have great points of view and they're articulate. And if you have an interest in coming on the show, you're more than welcome. You just have to reach out and let me know. Spacer says, I avoided the State of the Union. Just a waste of time to hear from that orange buffoon. Sloan says, hey, so glad to be here with you tonight. Yeah, that's the main reason for talking tonight is because the State of the Union. Now, everybody suggested that it was going to be a shit show. We weren't disappointed. It was an absolute shit show. I didn't watch all of it. I watched bits and pieces. I've seen the clips. I've seen the responses and all that sort of stuff. And what's interesting about Donald Trump, when he started the speech, you could tell he was nervous. He was worried because of how fast he was talking. He was talking fast. He was trying to rile people up. Because this is what Donald Trump thinks. He thinks he can talk anybody into anything. He can convince or persuade anybody. And that's what he was trying to do. But he knew he was behind a little bit because of all the shit going on. And he was talking very, very fast. Eventually, he slowed down. But much of what he said, disjointed, was lies and was just pandering to try to get applause. James says, I watched 20 minutes and got a headache. Yeah, I don't doubt that. Vincent Johnny says, heard bits and pieces from Trucker T live. Yeah, I saw Trucker T was on live. I just got back. I was out to dinner with a friend of ours, and I was missing the first part of it. And they looked at me and go, should you be listening to this? And I said, well, I'm going to see the bits and pieces, the highlights. And I use that term loosely. There were no highlights in this thing. It was just stupid comments. And him really trying to sell the fact that the economy's great, everybody's doing great, we're doing nothing but winning, when everybody in that room knew otherwise. Now, as I suspected, there were some empty seats there, some Democrats that didn't show. I don't know if that bugged Donnie Trump at all, but there were a couple of things that did bug him. Representative Al Green was there, and he had a sign that said, black people are not apes. And that riled things up a little bit. Steve Scalise ripped it out of his hands, and they ultimately escorted him out of the building. Ilhan Omar said some things too. And Donald Trump said to her, you should be ashamed of yourself. And Ilhan comes back and says, you killed American people. This is what I've always said. If somebody can actually face Donald Trump down and press him on the mistakes and the stupidity that he's been involved in, he will crack. I know Ilhan Omar tried to do it there. I think she might have been exited out of the event too. I was a little surprised by how long it went. Now, under normal circumstances, Donald Trump would do long speeches. Now, this one happened to be the longest speech in history, hour 48 minutes. And the reason I was surprised by that is because he didn't look well. He sounded kind of raspy. He sounded kind of weak. He was obviously hopped up on something, Adderall or something along those types of things. Um, but he started out really fast, and then he realized he had to pace himself. And I don't think he planned to go an hour and 48. The problem is when Donald Trump gets on a roll, he doesn't stop until he thinks he's persuaded or convinced people of something. And he never did that. Some Republicans stood up and um, applauded for him and that sort of thing, but he wasn't getting the real responses he was looking for. The only time that he got the biggest applause was when he announced the hockey team. And I read something somewhere that said that when he did that, he spoke so loud that he might have blown out the microphone. I don't know if that was true. Sloan says, I heard some empty seats were filled with Republican staff. I can see that. That's definitely likely. James says he was on crack. I don't know if it was crack, but it was something. That's not his normal behavior. Vincent says, opinion, the conflict with Mexico with cartels show how military action will go if Trump tries to fight the cartels. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just like organized crime. You hit them, they're going to hit you back. I mean, Donald Trump's own strategy is that you hit me, I'm going to hit you back harder. So it shouldn't be surprising that the cartels will do that too. That's all. I can see Donald Trump going in there, creating a mess, and then watch people die in the streets because the cartel is exacting revenge. Spacer says it's probably why he wanted the men's gospel team there, Erica Kirk and other MAGA. He only plays well when adoring fans are there. Yeah. Well, that's, whenever you see his rallies, they are only in friendly places. He would never think to go to some place that might be full of libtards. Spacer says he thought he would play better if his fans were there. Yeah, absolutely. He always tries to set things up. We know in his rallies that he's paying people to come in. He went down to Georgia just the other day to make a pitch for the candidate down there for Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat, and only 200 people showed up, if that. It's a sure sign that Donald Trump is worried. Everything he boasted about can be or has been debunked. Yeah. Prices are going low. We do nothing but win. Well, Donnie, your experience in court hasn't been too many wins there. Did he ever mention Iran? Not that I know of. I mean, he didn't mention a lot of things that were important. I mean, understand this is supposed to be the State of the Union. What's going on, and what are we going to do to deal with our problems? Because there's always problems. Never did anything like that. He was threatening. When he was talking about some of the military, he was getting very graphic in terms of blood and guts and that sort of thing. I don't know where he was going with that. I think he thought that would add credibility to whatever he's saying, make people worried or scared. Because remember, Donald Trump is a bully, and his only strategy is to scare and intimidate people. This is why I tell people when they say, I'm so nervous, I'm so scared, don't do that, because then you give the win to Donald Trump and the Trump-a-fucks. Stand strong, spit in their face, and push back. That's the only way to deal with these people. Vivian says they're bullies. They're not approaching real gang because they got guns too. They pick on innocent and scared. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I understand they're out near Philadelphia, but they're in the outer areas. They're not going to go into Philadelphia. They don't want none of that smoke. They don't want the gang members in Chicago or California. They are fucking cowards. Donald Trump all the way down to the lowest ICE member. James says he bragged about his non-existent health care plan. I did not hear that, but that is hilarious. He's been talking about a healthcare plan since 2015, and we have yet to see anything with regards to that plan. He has no interest in getting health care. Republicans have no interest in giving the people of this country health care. They're in bed with the pharmaceutical lobby, the medical lobby, the insurance lobby. They're there to make sure these guys get to continue to overcharge us, to pillage us of our money when every other industrialized nation um, has universal health care. We don't. And we're the richest country in the world. Please try to explain that to me. Vincent says cartels armed with weapons provided by America. I remember an American operation to track weapons with the cartels. Some of the guns managed to be smuggled back into America. Absolutely. Bren says, hey, Boomer. Hey, Bren. Good to see you. The men's hockey team disgraced the award. The Olympics are about representing our country, not your president, but that's what MAGA and the administration want. I saw those posts from people like Vance going after Amber Glenn and Alyssa Liu and others speaking out against them. I will tell you this. I have a connection to the 1980 Miracle on Ice team. I was 20 years old at the time, 1980. I had some good friends on the team. One of my best friends was on the team. His name is Mike Ramsey. He played on the national championship University of Minnesota team, the Olympic gold medal team, and later on for years in the pros. He was on that team, and through him, I met a lot of other people because I was working in radio and I covered the '79 team. Anyway, when that happened, there was no greater time or no greater event that brought unity to this country than that event when those young college kids won the Olympic gold. It was very unifying, and it came at a very important time, a time when we needed that unity. So now people are trying to make comparisons between the 1980 Olympics and the 2026 U.S. gold medal team as if it's the same. They'd like it to be the same, but it's not. They call in and allow in FBI Director Kash Patel. He's in there partying, looking like a dipshit, drinking beer and champagne, making jokes. And then the president calls and they make a joke about the women's gold medal team. Yeah, I suppose we better invite them too. What they did was the exact opposite of what the 1980 team did. They fomented divisiveness, division, hate, sexism, racism to a certain extent. That's what they did. And I've said before, the men's hockey team made a horrible mistake. This was an opportunity to get eyes on hockey and maybe expand the viewership and the fans for the NHL. They did not do that. They pissed a lot of people off, and they didn't seem to understand that that's what they were doing. I saw Jack Hughes, who scored the winning goal, was talking about what was going on and what people were saying. And he said, well, people make everything so political. Yeah, Jack, you made it political. You brought the FBI director in. You talked to the president. You agreed to go see the president. And then you made fun of the women's hockey team. I became a fan of women's hockey a long, long time ago. And the reason I did is because of my friend who was on the '80 Olympic team. His daughter was playing for the University of Minnesota at the time. He said, hey, you should come check this out. Well, he knows hockey better than anybody I know. I said, that's got to be good. So I go out and watch the women's Gopher hockey team play. It was outstanding. It was great hockey. And I followed hockey all my life. I did play-by-play of hockey for many years. And so I was really impressed by what was going on. And there was not a lot of the bullshit I was used to with men's hockey. It was a great game. And my wife and I continued to go there, got season tickets and shit, and kept going. And we still go to this day. I don't go to men's hockey. Not that I have an axe to grind with men and their hockey, but I appreciate where they've come from with women's hockey. In 1980, I watched the University of Minnesota women's club hockey team, and it was terrible because they were new to it and they didn't know what they were doing. So from that point all the way to now, the growth and the abilities and the talents is truly amazing. Now, when Donald Trump did ask the women's hockey team to come to Washington, D.C., like the men's team came today. They said, no, we've got scheduling problems. They were being polite. They didn't want to go. Nobody in their right mind would want to go. Donald Trump is like Kash Patel. They like to ride the coattails of anything successful so they can get some of that on them. That's not what happened today. And I will tell you this. This is the first time in 46 years that the men's hockey team won the gold medal. Now, in the 28 to 30 years, women have had a hockey team or had the competition for hockey in the Olympics. The women's team have won a medal every year. They won 3 gold medals, 4 silver medals, and a bronze medal. These women are pretty impressive, pretty incredible. And the fact that Donald Trump and the U.S. men's hockey team besmirched the women's hockey team really got me pissed off. Really got me pissed off. I'm just going to say, I think the men's hockey team fucked up by doing what they did. I think they basically Nicki Minaj'd themselves, and they're going to have a hard time coming back from that. Incandescent Light says, I did not listen to the State of the Union address. I did listen to Heather Cox Richardson's State of the Union, which was so good. About an hour, highly recommended. Yes, Heather Cox Richardson is brilliant. I do listen to her from time to time, and I would recommend her to anybody if you want to know what the fuck is up here. Incandescent Light says, I love the story about you taking a call because they thought you were Mike Ramsey. LOL. I watched it on the Rational Boomer 2 channel. Yeah, I'll tell you that story real quick. Now, this Mike Ramsey was a great talent. He was in high school. I was in high school. And he was getting all kinds of calls from people to get scholarships and that sort of thing. But here's the weird thing. His name is Mike. My name is Mike. We're buddies. We hang out all the time. We're friends. The weird thing is his phone number, his landline phone number, is only one number off of my phone number. The last number in my phone number was 7. His was 6. Just a weird coincidence. So anyway, I get a call one day, and I'm, 17, 18 years old, senior in high school. I get this guy calls up and says, hey, could I talk to Mike? I said, you got him. I'm Mike. And he says, listen, Mike, it's good to talk to you. We'd really like to talk to you about coming to play for our school. And I don't know if it was Boston or some Eastern school. And he said, we'd really like you to come play for us this year. I go, wow, that's fucking weird. He goes, why is that weird? I said, it's weird that you would want me to play hockey for you when, in fact, I don't play hockey. He said, what? I said, I don't play hockey. He said, so you're not Mike Ramsey? I go, nope, I'm not Mike Ramsey, but I tell you what, I know him. I know his correct number. How about if I give you that number and you can call him? He says, all right, yeah, you do that. He was kind of curt with me because he didn't like me being a smartass, but I couldn't help myself anymore. As he's getting ready to get off the phone, I said, wait a minute, coach. I got one question for you. And he says, what's that? And I said, so does that mean I'm not getting a scholarship? He goes, fuck no, you're not getting a scholarship, for Christ's sake. Hung up on me, called Mike. Mike didn't end up playing at that place. He went to the University of Minnesota, of course, but it was kind of a fun story. He got a laugh out of it when I told him. He told me, he said, Maury, you should have taken it. You should have taken that fucker. You should have. I think they would have found something out, and it wouldn't have lasted as soon as I put on skates. Spacer says, have you been seeing Texas primary voters on the Democratic side are out voting Republican primary voters? I also think Tallarico is running away with this nomination. I like Crockett, but some of her messaging is not resonating because Tallarico Tallarico is talking about rights and affordability. Trump and the Republicans are also getting worried, but they really gave Tallarico a platform when they tried to silence him on Colbert. Yeah, I don't have a preference of who wins that primary, and I've often thought that Jasmine Crockett would be the better choice because she's a fighter and she's got some experience in the House of Representatives. But you're right, her messaging, she's doing what Kamala was doing. She's trying to ride the fence. She knows there's going to be a lot of Republican voters, and she's hoping she can pull some of those Republican voters. But I will tell you this, she will not. Kamala made that mistake. Jasmine's making that mistake. And I can see Tallarico possibly running away with it. That's distinctly possible. And I don't have a problem with it. He's a brilliant kid. He's a smart kid. The advantage he has in Texas is that he's white and he's religious, and she's a person of color. That doesn't play well in uh, it doesn't play well in Texas at this point. Sloan says, so right. Love the 80s team. Yeah, I did too. And I had the good fortune of knowing a number of them because a number of them came from Minnesota. I covered the University of Minnesota the year before, and I had friends on a couple of friends on the Gopher team, so I got to know all those folks. They were a great bunch of guys, absolutely. Brent says Quinn Hughes was a Vancouver Canuck and was a darling on that team. Yes, he was. And Brent, you know where he is now? He's on the Minnesota Wild. And he's a very talented guy. He's a great player. I question, his brother Jack and some of the other people that were involved with this and laughed about this, about these women. It really pisses me off, to be perfectly honest with you. It's very angering. Spacer says Amber Glenn and Alyssa Liu are also examples of bringing people together. They're really resonating with a lot of us young people. It's not about the gold medals. It's about the representing of one's country. And that's very true. It's when we were talking about the 80 Olympics, of course, it was a big deal that the hockey team won because they beat the Russians and they won the gold medal. But people were hungry for an opportunity to be united. That's when every American was on the same team that night that the 80 Olympic team beat the Russians and then ultimately won the gold medal. Everybody unified. Nobody could argue that that was a great moment in time. We could have done something similar to that with this particular hockey team, the men's hockey team, but they went and fucked it up. They went and destroyed it by being divisive. So what I would suggest to you, don't worry about the men's gold medal hockey team. We need to take pride and support and exalt the women's gold medal hockey team. Because not only did they win the gold medal, they pretty much dominated that whole Olympics. They scored 31 points. They only gave up 2 points. I mean, who the fuck does that? Vincent Johnny says, since I didn't want to watch that man's State of the Union, did he mention getting Greenland again? I don't think he did. There was a lot of things he didn't talk about. A State of the Union is intended to give us an idea of what's going on and what the plans are for the future, and he didn't do that. He brought in some people like some military people just to get applause and get some positive vibes going on in there. And that's fine. I don't mind them, paying tribute to those people. But we got a lot of problems in this country. Some of these should be addressed. He shouldn't be saying the economy's great and we're just winning too much, because that's the kind of thing he said, because there's many, many people in this country that are suffering financially and terrified to even go on the streets because of these ICE agents. There's kids that won't go to school. There's adults that won't go shopping. Even though they might be citizens, because they're brown, they're afraid to do that. Spacer says, did you see Trump sent a hospital ship to Greenland? Trump saying that he didn't think Greenlanders were getting proper health care. Greenland should be sending a hospital ship to us with the amount of people who lost health care this year. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's funny that we sent a hospital ship there. Turns out we couldn't do it because there wasn't one available, so we haven't done that. But the story I heard is that there was somebody on a ship outside of Greenland, someone from the military, that got deathly ill, and they brought him into Greenland, and Greenland took care of him. See, it's all about projection. They want to divert, distract, turn around, spin everything they say. The only person that got sick was somebody on a military boat who had to go into Greenland to get the care he needed. JJ says, "Good evening, Mike." Hey, JJ. Sloan says, "I'm in Texas, just voted early today. I went for Crockett." Well, you can't, you could go Tallarico or Crockett. You're not going to be wrong in that case. Either one of those people would be great prospects. I don't know who's going to win. I don't know enough about Texas, but I hope against hope that whoever wins the nomination beats the hell of whoever's the nominee by the Republican Party. I am hoping it's Paxton because he's a fucking goofball and he's a less opportunity of beating the Democrat. Incandescent Light says, "I cannot believe that Crockett decided to run against Tallarico. He has that cult leader feel, but in a good way." Yeah, he kind of does. He does. He's a very articulate guy. I was surprised by Jasmine Crockett deciding to run there, but she was kind of caught in a trap here. Um, because in the redistricting in Texas, they did away with Jasmine Crockett's district. So she couldn't run again for the seat she's currently in. So she had to think of another option. Frankly, I would have liked to seen Tallarico run for a position in the House of Representatives. He's a state politician. He could use a little experience and seasoning in Washington, D.C., and a rep job would probably be a good thing for that. Jasmine Crockett does have some experience in Washington, D.C. That's why I thought she would be a good person in the Senate. Now, however that shakes out, as long as the Democrat wins, that is going to be a huge deal in Texas. We get a blue Senate seat in Texas, the Republicans' minds are going to fucking explode. Vincent Johnny says it's been 4 years for the Ukraine war. Yeah, it's hard to imagine, isn't it? When that thing started, Vladimir Putin thought he'd be able to wrap this up in 3 days. Didn't quite work out that way. A lot of respect has to be given to the people of Ukraine. They fought hard and mightily, especially against, everything Donald Trump has done and won't do. Donald Trump has sided with Vladimir Putin, and he's trying to put pressure on Ukraine, but props to Zelensky for saying, "Fuck you, we're going to keep fighting. We're not going to bow to your pressure." Evan says, "I think Greenland should be sending a mental health ship to the U.S. Because the administration is full of psychos." Don't disagree with you. Spacer says, "I saw a poll today, and again, take it how you will, but newly flipped to Democrats, but Democrats nevertheless is leading both Republican primary candidates for the governorship of Florida. A large margin. Polls shouldn't really be taken as gospel, but the margin tells the discontent with Republicans since Florida is a cesspool of corruption." Yeah, I've often said that I don't know if I can trust polls. They've always been wrong. But what I appreciate about these polls, I know the Republicans buy into them. So if this makes them nervous, maybe makes them make a mistake, keep reporting these polls. But these polls are kind of in line with what we're seeing too. Donald Trump is at 36% approval. That sounds high given all the shit he's done. I'm surprised we have 36% of this country that think he's doing a good job. They're either complicit or dumb motherfuckers. I don't know which it is, but I'm surprised it's that much. Incandescent Light says next Dem president will have a position for Jasmine. Yeah, I think there's a few people out there that are no longer in government. Say Jasmine loses the primary. The next president should look at Jasmine Crockett for a position, or she can run for another position. But also Stacey Abrams from Georgia. That woman may be the brightest politician in all of Washington, and she's not even in Washington anymore. She was largely responsible for the two senators in Georgia to become blue. She's a brilliant politician, and she needs to find a spot someplace. Trevor Lee says Jasmine should be in the Senate. I think by just experience, by experience and her willingness to fight. Now, let me just say, Tallarico is more than able to fight. He does fight. He just does it in a different way. He's very measured. He's very calm. He's articulate, and he's smart. But we have to remember who we're dealing with here. We're dealing with bullies and loudmouths and people that try to control the narrative. So in that case, sometimes you have to be able to put the pressure on and talk louder than they do. Tallarico's good, but I think Jasmine Crockett would be better at it. Again, whether it be Tallarico or whether it be Jasmine Crockett doesn't really matter to me. I just want a blue Senate seat in Texas. What's Stephen A. Smith getting louder with politics lately? He needs to stay out, really, I think, is these arrogant individuals are seeing Trump and they think they can get into power and get a taste. And from what I know about Stephen A. Smith, he seems to be another narcissist. Yeah, I don't talk about Stephen A. Smith much because I don't think much about him. I don't watch sports programming. And it always struck me as kind of annoying when I watched sports programming. You'd see these people getting in arguments about fucking sports or who's the better quarterback or whatever. Really, motherfuckers? This is what's important to you? Stephen A. Smith is an arrogant motherfucker, probably a narcissist, and he's playing with the idea of running for president. Do it, motherfucker. You'll get destroyed. You know, maybe the Republicans will latch on to you because you're right up their alley being a TV star. But this guy is very polarizing. I think there's as many or more people that don't like him as do like him, but he's so arrogant, he thinks he can pull something like this off. I'd love to see him be the candidate in 2028 and watch him get his sorry ass kicked. There's he doesn't have a prayer of winning a presidential election. I'll be honest with you, short of Donald Trump in 2028, I can't think of one Republican that has any chance of winning in 2028. After what we will go through, after all that the Republicans have done to this country economically, in terms of humanitarianism, the way they've treated people, the racism, the misogyny, the sexism, I can't imagine there is one Republican out there that's strong enough to overcome that. Frankly, not even Donald Trump. Donald Trump's not going to be running for a third term, in spite of what anybody might say. I don't think he'll survive that long. He didn't look good tonight. He sounded kind of slow going after a while. Voice was very raspy, much different than we're used to hearing from him. After the SCOTUS verdict on Trump's tariffs, any deal he wanted is void. And with America facing 40 countries trading with each other and not America, it will not go well. Yeah, I didn't see this part, but when he was talking about the tariffs, apparently he stared down some of these Supreme Court justices. Ooh, Donnie, you're fucking scary. But Donnie's got a lot of problems when it comes to these tariffs. And the countries did all the right thing. Once the Supreme Court said his tariffs were illegal, all the other countries said, okay, we don't have a deal now because they're illegal. The basis of your negotiation doesn't exist anymore. So then Donald Trump says, well, if you don't stick to the deal, then we're going to raise tariffs. But dumbass, they just told you you can't do tariffs. Well, now I'm going to try a different angle. I'm going to try to do this, and maybe we can push it along. Now, the way he wants to go this time has a limitation. He can only put these tariffs on for 150 days, which is too fucking long. But he can do that. But I don't know how he's going to impose them, if he's going to be able to accomplish it. I've said before, European countries and all the other countries involved have the ace card. They can say to Donnie, here, fuck yourself. Here's the deal. We're not going to trade anything with you anymore. And yes, it'll be rough on those European countries, but it'll be devastating to us because those European countries are already finding other trade partners. And America will have nobody that wants to trade with us, and see how that works. They could also say we're selling our treasury bonds, which would pretty much break this country economically. And they can shut down all the military installments they have in these European countries. I guarantee it, Donald Trump and his crowd of clowns will back down off of that if they put that out there. What do you think of the Board of Peace? Seems to be already falling apart because the Islamic nations are not getting any guarantees for the Palestinian lands. No shit. But I watched Robert Reich's podcast, and he says this is a Trump attempt to make his own United Nations because he felt he was humiliated by them, and it wasn't his idea to make an international organization, FDR, like FDR. Yeah, I think Robert Reich is right, which is crazy to say because he's always fucking right. Um, yeah, this is Donald Trump trying to intimidate again. He didn't feel. I'll give you an example of how he does this shit. Back in the 70s or early 80s, he wanted to buy an NFL team so bad, but the entirety of the owners in the NFL said, "Nah, we don't want this crazy, goofy motherfucker as a owner of an NFL team." So what does he do? He jumps on board with the USFL, which was a upstart league at the point. He buys, I think, the New Jersey Titans or something like that, some or Generals, whatever they were called. He buys the New Jersey team, and then he starts making noise, and he starts trying to convince them to do weird things. Then he convinced them to go up head to head with the NFL to try to compete with the NFL, and that didn't work well, and USFL ended up fading and dying after that. Once again, another failure. So it's pretty similar to what he's doing with the UN. He doesn't like the UN. He feels like he's been embarrassed by the UN. So he's going to start this peace board. But there's a second part of this, too. He's starting this peace board to try to show he can do it better than the UN, which he'll fail at. But he's also collecting billions of dollars. And where's that money going? Probably going in his pocket. So it's revenge against the UN and a way to grift some money. No matter what Donald Trump does, no matter what reason he does it for, it's always a way to make money. That's just the way he does things. Can't believe the Republicans haven't woken up about Trump. Um, yeah, I agree with you. Um, I thought at some point the Republicans, when they realized he was more of a liability than an asset, they would just kick him to the curb. But never in my wildest dreams did I think it would take this long. I'm surprised by that too. That time will come, and it's getting closer every day as he continues to fuck up and embarrass himself and the country and the Republicans. But I never thought it would take this long. Trevor Lee says 950% tariffs on Trump's casket. Mm, put it this way. If Trump takes the big dirt nap, I'll pay for the casket. I don't give a shit. It's money well invested. Like Randy Fine congratulating Mark Carney by calling him governor. These fools think they're being smart, but they are not. Yeah, Randy Fine is a special kind of stupid. This idiot should have never won that Florida election. What was interesting about it, he barely won it in a district that went to Donald Trump in a big way. He barely won it, and I hope the Floridians are sorry that they voted that stupid motherfucker in. Is there any way as a nation that we could boycott paying taxes? Now, I've got a friend out here, queen of the uh, CGVs. She talks about that, and I'm not so sure you can really do that. I mean, a lot of taxes are taken out automatically, like, from your wages and that sort of thing. Um, if you were to do something like that, the only way it would work, I think, is if everybody decided to do it. If everybody said, "Fuck it, we're not paying," then good luck with that. Then they're not. But if you get a few here and a few there, you're gonna get some people going to jail. So I don't it's a nice thought, but I don't think it's possible, at least at this point. Vincent Johnny says Trump is pushing everyone towards China. Yeah, absolutely. China doesn't even have to do anything anymore. Donald Trump is making them money hand over fist. And I don't think that's his intention, but he's so stupid that that's what ends up happening. Whatever Cuba was in the past or what it is in the present, it doesn't deserve what Trump administration is doing to them. Yeah, we don't hear a lot about Cuba, but there's a oil embargo and all that going on, and it sounds like people are truly struggling, and Cuba is really going through some shit. We need to see more um, reports on what's going on with Cuba because it's a horrible situation, and for what reason? We don't even know what reason they're doing it for or what they hope to gain. The only thing I could possibly think of is Donald Trump's attempt to figure out a way to take over Cuba and give it back to the mafia like they had it in the 50s and 60s. Roseanne says reporting is not one country that showed up for Trump's peace board has yet to cough up the billions of dollars he's requiring to join. Would you give Donald Trump $1 billion? Would you even spend any time trying to cut a deal with him? He's got these deals and then he says, okay, I'm going to do 15% just to show the Supreme Court. But he's not thinking about how the Europeans and everybody else is going to react. He doesn't think beyond the end of his nose. He's a dumb motherfucker and he always does this to himself. Spacer said, I heard your discussions with Howard, and this may sound like a conspiracy theory, but Jeffrey Epstein definitely had thoughts on who should be running each country, some of which are in the Epstein files or mentioned at least. But we are seeing far-right movements. Turning Point USA is going to Germany, Japan, the UK, trying to get the far right elected. Could this be a build off of Epstein's idea to spread those MAGA-esque movement? Well, that's kind of been going on anyway. Elon has been trying to do that too, but he may be going on trial in some of those countries after some of the shit he pulled. Are they trying to expand the MAGA, the ultra-conservative, or fascism? Yeah, they're trying to do it. But remember, they always fuck up. They don't do too well. They're not being well received in Europe. They're not being well received in Canada. We've got people there trying to pull it off, but it's not going to work. And when they watch this country go down in flames, and it will go down in flames even more so than it is before it's over, who's going to want to jump on that fucking bandwagon? Um, Somebody wrote that the governors could hold them. Yeah, I don't think they're talking about income tax there. I think they're talking about taxes collected that the state would send to the federal government, and that's a different situation. Um, Take like Minnesota or California. We're a giver state. We give more money to the federal government than we expect to get in return. Red states are totally different. There are governors talking about something called a soft secession, not an actual secession, but stopping paying the federal government the money that we used to or have been paying them. And the theory is this: if you're not going to give us the help that the federal government normally offers us, then we need to keep the money to pay for it ourselves. Now, the states that are blue states, that are giver states, could do that. But tell me what's going to happen with Alabama when the blue states aren't given the money that they're living off of. That would be an interesting thing, and that would put a lot of pressure on this government. Uh, England, Nigel Farage wants to make his own ice. He does not know how that's being received right here, right? These guys are morons. Sadly, they are fucking morons. There's no question about it. Louis Castro says replace income taxes with tariffs. How is that a replacement? We pay taxes based on our income. So you cancel the income taxes, but in order to offset those income taxes, you have to raise the prices of products and services. We're still paying it one way or another. We have more freedom because we just don't buy expensive things if we don't want to pay high taxes. But um, Donald Trump talks about using tariffs to replace income taxes if now we won't have to pay income tax. And that's bullshit. We're going to pay income tax. We're going to pay a lot of income tax if we're doing it with tariffs. What do they got now? $175 billion collected in less than a year. Where'd that money come from? Didn't come from China. Didn't come from Europe. Came from you and me. So now you're paying double the taxes. You're still paying income taxes, and you're also paying tariff taxes. So how you feeling about that? Side note, England or Australia, I think, just passed laws capping political donations and amounts. They're also banning overseas political donations. We need that here. Cripple APAC. I agree. You know, people will call me anti-Semitic because I don't like APAC. I don't like giving Israel a bunch of money when they don't need it and we could use it here. Donald Trump kept saying America first. Well, why are we sending Israel money then? In terms of getting limitations as to what you can spend on campaigns, absolutely. We need people to start winning elections that are qualified and are saying the right things as opposed to who buys the most commercials. And that's where we're at now. Basically, they are buying elections at this point. And Louis says Trump said this regarding the tariffs and taking away um, taxes. I think there were a lot of people in the crowd that didn't expect him to say that and weren't too happy that he said it because it's something that just won't work. I mean, it's along the lines of him saying, oh, you're going to get Doge checks. Oh, you're going to get tariff checks. Donald Trump also said during his speech that, well, because of the litigation, you may not get your money for a few years. Yeah, Donnie, we were never going to get the money. We're not going to get the money. And you're just now making excuses. Quite a quite a departure from what you told us before the election. Spacer says it's the same with Kathy Hochul debating on whether tax the middle class or tax the rich to offset the deficit in the state. Mondami advocates for taxing the rich, but it shouldn't be a hard decision. No, it shouldn't be a hard decision. We're already paying taxes. So your answer is for us to pay more taxes? The rich are paying no taxes. Easy choice here. Make them pay their fair share. If you make them pay their fair share of taxes, you make them pay their fair share of Social Security, we have no more problems. There is no good reason not to charge them their fair share in taxes. Don't tell me that if we charge them taxes, they'll move out of the country. Well, fucking do it then. Who cares? Secondly, that they won't reinvest. Well, they don't reinvest now. They just put that shit in their pocket and they hide it. Adam Grant says, hello, bud. Adam here. Hey, Adam. Good to see you. Vincent says, Mark Carney has traveled more than Trudeau, no matter what excuses the Conservatives make. His travels is for trade deals Canada needs. Well, yeah, now, especially since all trade deals are pretty much shut down with their greatest trade partner being America. Spacer says Hochul is too establishment, and there was rumors of her ambitions for higher office, but I'm not sure now. Yeah, I don't know that Hochul has a chance for higher office, and it depends on what you call higher office. You're talking about the Senate, you're talking about the presidency. I don't think she's a realistic candidate for either of those things. I think Trump would have shit himself had the victim stood up. You mean a victim of his that might have been in the crowd there? Yeah, I don't know if there were any survivors that showed up. I'd hope there was. That would certainly make Donald Trump nervous. He doesn't like when anybody brings up Epstein. People should take note of that. People in the media should take note of that. It makes him nervous. It makes him ramble and say crazy shit, so we should be doing it all the fucking time. What will become of the billionaires once the average citizen is bled dry? That's my point exactly. Once you've bled the middle class dry, where are you gonna get your money? Who are you gonna grift from? They should be cultivating the middle class so they can continue to grift the middle class. Spacer says there was a murmur for her for the presidency in the primary, at least at VP, but you're right, she doesn't have a prayer. No. She does, it's like when people talked about Tim Walz running for president at some point. I like Tim Walz, but I think Tim Walz has had it with politics. Somebody talked about Amy Klobuchar. Should she win the governorship, she could appoint Tim Walz as the senator. He said he'd rather eat glass than that. I think he's tired of the bullshit, and he just wants to lead a quiet life with his family. Um, Kathy Hochul, kind of the same thing. She really doesn't have the charisma. She doesn't have the platform at all at this point. Maybe I'm wrong about Kathy Hochul, but I haven't seen her much in the press doing anything of any importance. And you're going to really have to make some noise if you hope to be the Democratic nominee. There are better options out there. I was talking to somebody at dinner today, a woman by the name of Kathy, who my wife and I have known for years and years, but she also listens to the podcast. So, Kathy, hi, if you're listening today. Um, she and I agree on if we were to pick a candidate right at this moment in time, I think the candidate you would pick would be Mark Kennedy. Well, not Mark Kennedy, Mark Kelly from Arizona. Mark Kelly is a former military hero. He's a former astronaut. He's been in Congress. His wife was in Congress. You remember there was an assassination attempt and she was shot. Um, he's a sharp guy. He's a tough guy. He pushes back. If I was to pick somebody right now, it would be him. But you never know what's going to happen over the next year. So we just got to wait. I think somebody may just emerge. Mark says, hello, Boomer. I sent you a video a few weeks ago. Did you look at it? It was a testimony from an Epstein victim. I did probably look at it briefly. Mark, you have to understand, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here, but with TikTok and all this stuff, I get sent literally hundreds of videos every day. I go through TikTok a lot. A lot of the stuff that people send to me, I've already seen because I spend a lot of time looking at these videos. I appreciate you doing that. I did see it, and I'll be honest with you. Every time I see testimony from a victim or even just an interview with a victim, it turns my stomach. You want to look away from it. You know we can't look away from it, but I hate listening to this stuff. Some of these things that have been described in the Epstein files, I say, I hope they're not true because they're so egregious, so abhorrent, and I hope that's not true. But if what we see in the Epstein files is true and this kind of thing is going on, the trafficking, the rape, the murder, the torture, I feel like we almost have to burn down the whole fucking country and start over. I can't believe the shit I'm reading. Mikey Sherrill is gaining steam. She's fighting ICE head on. Yeah, she's the new governor, and she's doing a good job. She wasn't expected to win and beat a Republican, but she won by 15 points. That should be a red flag to the Republicans at this point. Mark Kelly and AOC in 2028. That would be an interesting team. I think AOC could be a presidential candidate at some point, but I think in 2028 we have to be careful. 2024, we got the realization that apparently there are more people that are sexist, don't want a woman as president, and are racist. And I'm talking about in the Democratic ranks. So we got to be careful. The 2028 election, we must win. If a Republican wins, we're fucked. So we've got to pick the person who's going to win, whether we like them or not, or like somebody better. Whoever it's going to take to win, that's who we need to pick. And I'm sorry to say this, I don't agree with it. But what Mark Kelly also offers, amongst all these other qualifications, he's a white male. And apparently that's what some people need in order to vote for a candidate. Um, Michelle says there were approximately 13 survivors of Epstein crimes, but they were seated separately on purpose. Some of the survivors were able to sit closer together by finding empty seats. I got this info from Katie Curry, our Katie Couric podcast tonight, with one of the survivors who provided that info. Yeah, I'm glad to see that there were some survivors there, and if that puts some pressure on Donald Trump, good for them. Adam says, I still see breaking balls. ICE is still breaking balls in Minnesota. Yeah, they are. You know, they want you to believe that there's been a drawdown and that things have gotten so much better here. That's not true. ICE is still all over the place. You see hundreds of vehicles leave the Whipple building every morning. Nothing has been pulled back as yet, so don't listen to that shit. Spacer says, this may sound controversial, but I do think a woman could win in 2028. Yes, we shouldn't risk it, but how bad it is, I think anyone could win. Yeah, I don't disagree with you, and I have no problem with a woman winning the presidency. I think Kamala Harris would have been an outstanding president. Um, and what you're saying is true. How bad could it get? It may be a time that's ripe for bringing a woman in because the Republicans have fucked up so badly. I agree with you. But I will say this, when Kamala Harris was running for president, there was a lot of bad things going on. But I thought there was one thing that would win it for the Democrats without question, and it's only one thing that happened that would have made it an easy win for the Democrats, and that was overturning Roe v. Wade. I thought for sure the women in this country would push back, and they would not vote for a Republican after going through that bullshit. Again, I was wrong about that. I'm looking at logic and common sense, and apparently that isn't a thing anymore. Roseanne says, that's what I've been saying. We can't afford to be fussy. We have to vote for whoever the Democratic candidate is. Absolutely. Whether it's your favorite candidate or you don't like the candidate, it's better than the alternative, and that being a Republican. Spacer says, Ohio will go for Democrats. I think the Republicans in the legislature and our Governor Mike DeWine, basically a Mitch McConnell senile politician, is contending with scandal of Les Wexner. Yeah, Les Wexner, that guy is so tied into the Epstein files. He is co-conspirator one. He's the reason that Jeffrey Epstein was able to gain the wealth he has, the success he had, and Les Wexner is as big a creep as anybody. Of course, when he gave the speech or gave the testimony, he said he didn't know anything about anything, which was all absolute lies. And Les Wexner being from Ohio certainly doesn't help matters much. We're coming to the end here, typical hour or so that we do this, but I wanted to bring this up. On Thursday, there's going to be testimony from Hillary Clinton regarding the Epstein files, which makes no fucking sense because she's not in the files. She didn't do anything wrong. She's an elderly woman, but she's sharp as a tack, and she's mean as a fucking bobcat, and she's pissed. And they're going to talk to her in hopes to try to embarrass her. Good luck with that, because those people in the oversight committee don't have anything on Hillary Clinton. She's pissed, and I bet when we have this testimony, we're going to see her bringing up Donald Trump's name every other sentence. She's going to embarrass Donald Trump in this. She's going to embarrass the Republicans, and they're not going to know what hit them. Now, on the 27th, which is Friday, Bill Clinton is going to testify, and I predict what's going to happen with Bill Clinton is pretty much what happened with Les Wexner. I don't know him. I didn't know him till after he was convicted. I don't know anything. I wasn't involved in anything. That's what bound to see. Um, Jules says our only prayer is to win the House and Senate in November. I don't know if it's our only prayer. I mean, if we only win the House, and I think that's a presumed assumption that we will win the House, we'll be able to hold them off. But winning the House and the Senate would be devastating to the Republican Party and basically castrate Donald Trump as a president. He'll be more than a lame duck at that point. And I think there's a distinct possibility we could win the Senate and the House, and that would be fun to watch. Spacer says Hillary is establishment, but she has the same fire as Bernie Sanders. Well, whether she's establishment or not, it doesn't really matter because she's not running for anything. I'm not a big Hillary fan either as far as the candidate goes, but I know she's mean as hell. She's smart as hell, and she's pissed off that she's going in there. So she ain't going to be playing any games. Incandescent light. I do not want Kamala Harris. She threw Joe under the bus in her book. She can rot. The cream will rise to the top soon. New candidates will pop up. Pritzker is a name in the files. Not him, but someone from the Hyatt Company. That is how he became a billionaire. Newsom is not the guy. Just wait. Someone is going to come to the front. Yeah, absolutely. I think Kamala Harris' time is done. I don't think she should run. Not that she wouldn't be a great president. I just don't think she can win now after having lost to Donald Trump this last time. J.B. Pritzker. Yeah, the Pritzker name does come up in the Epstein files. You have to understand it's his cousin. He's the CEO of Hyatt, and I understand that Pritzker gained money from his family's fortune in Hyatt hotels. I don't know whether you can make him responsible because of what his cousin did. I don't know the relationship there, but it's not a good thing to have if your name shows up in the Epstein files, whether it's you or not. Louis says, Mike, I listen every day. I appreciate all you do. Well, thank you, Louis. I appreciate it. I get that a lot, and I appreciate it so much because it makes me feel good about what I'm doing here, that people are looking to listen. And without you folks listening, doing this is pointless. Kamala Harris isn't assured to be running for president. She's kind of in the same boat as Tim Walz. She's tired of a lot of the bullshit. Yeah. I don't see him. I don't see Tim Walz running for anything in the future. And honestly, I don't know that he could win a primary. There are other people that will be in the spotlight at that point. And like was said before, I agree with you completely based on what I've seen in past elections and campaigns. Somebody will emerge. Something will happen. Somebody will get a platform and people will jump on board that and they'll ride that all the way to the end. Could be Mark Kelly. It could be somebody we don't even know yet. So we'll just have to wait and see. Spacer says we might see Mark Kelly, Ro Khanna. Ro Khanna is another one that would be good. AOC rise to the primary podium. I'd like to see AOC in the primary just to see how she does with Democrats. Nobody has begun the race yet. First, the midterms, win one battle first. Yeah, you're absolutely right. People are saying, why don't we know who's going to run for reelection? Nobody's going to announce for reelection until after the midterms. That will tell them basically where the strengths and the weaknesses are, and then they'll make that decision. I thought it was funny. Donald Trump said yesterday that he heard that Gavin Newsom has dropped out of the presidential race. Well, Gavin Newsom never entered the presidential race, and he certainly didn't say he dropped out. So what's Donald Trump doing there? He's getting tired of Gavin Newsom kicking his ass, so he's trying to marginalize him. It's a lame-ass, weak way of doing it, but that's all Donald Trump does. Everything he does is fucking lame. All right. We are going to wrap up this Substack Live and the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you all for participating. It is so important when we do these things that you participate. You always come through, and I appreciate it immensely. For those of you that spent the time listening, I appreciate you taking the time. I hope you have a great night, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.